Hi, Zaran. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm here.
Good, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome
Hi.
to this introductory webinar from Future SME. Future SME is a trans-European consortium supported by the European Union to develop a new business model for small organizations. My name is Dennis Carney, and I am the moderator for this session. The presenters today are Zaran Buckingham and Professor Umit Petici, whom I will introduce shortly. The purpose of the session today is to show you how Zaran implemented changes to the curricula of her school in order to make it more relevant to the business world. In terms of the webinar protocol, as an attendee, you are in listen mode only. However, you can use the question box to send questions to me, which I will collate together in order to make sure that they are addressed by Zaran or Umit after their presentations. There is also a short survey at the end of the webinar, which will be presented to you on leaving it, and I would appreciate if you would fill this in. If you would like a copy of the presentations also, we will give you an email address at the end. We have no polls in this webinar. I would now like to introduce Zaran Buckingham to you, your first presenter. Zaran founded and was the director of the Forel International School in Bratislava in the Slovak Republic. This school is now called the Cambridge International School. She developed a new advanced curricula within the school, which is now offered by the Ministry of Education of Slovakia as an alternative to the national curriculum. Having recently sold her business, Zaran is currently president of the Institute for Sustainable Education. She is also the CEO of Swiss Experts, a consulting and training company for small and medium enterprises, and is also a senior consultant at an organization called Developing Potentials International, which is involved in the promotion of intellectual and artistic potential. As I said earlier, if you have any questions, please send a message to me through the question box, and I will ensure that these are responded to. I will now hand you over to Zaran.
Excuse me.
There I am. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
It's the afternoon here, Zaran, by the way.
Sorry, I'm in the United States. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to welcome you to our webinar. I just want to make sure that this panel is not disturbing this. Can everybody see my
Yes, we
slides?
can. Yes, perfectly.
Welcome to our webinar. I'm going to take you through a short presentation of about 20 minutes on how to make a second-level education relevant to the industry skills. This is a task that was done within the framework of Future SME, the European project that has been going on since 4 years, and it was done in cooperation with Forel International School and the Institute for Sustainable Education. Briefly, the project Future SME has the primary objective to develop a new practical business and manufacturing model for SMEs in Europe, by which they can be enabled to compete successfully at their national levels and as well as European and global level. Within this framework of the Future SME, there was a task force to develop the educational concept of the project. We were supposed to integrate into the people supply chain the best practices and philosophies of the Future SME. And mainly our focus was on secondary education. So if you look at the Future SME, we are this smaller circle here, and we prepare, so to say, the human element for the Future SME. As our goal, we understood the building of competency of the young generation, and in order to build this competency, we were to develop attitudes and approaches, knowledge and skills. Looking at the qualification and characteristics for successful engagement in the future SME, we recognized certain prerequisites which we listed. Then we divided them into different groups of attitudes or approaches and best production skills. Again, we looked at the attitudes, and under attitudes we distinguished those that are related to civil life and those that are related to business life. Of course, there's always an overlap and you cannot really distinguish them from each other. Some of those elements that were listed, for example, were development of character, education, decision-making skills, and consultations, and these were more related to civil life. And then there were soft skills and work attitudes, which were more related towards business life. Then at the best practices level, we see some skills that are needed to be successful in business, such as the knowledge of business studies, finances, and management. And then on the other hand, there are certain things such as the knowledge of ICTs and media and total quality management, etc., which are more based on the technology side of those skills. So just to give you an overview, these were the way we divided those things, the prerequisites that needed to be built in to build those competencies. Of course, we had to bring them into schools, so we looked at the structure of schools, and we realized that most schools have this section, which is the core curriculum. That's the section where it's the foundation of the school, and they teach math and science and languages and PE and all of those subjects. But then there are schools around the world that each one of them is teaching a series of good skills, and if we categorize them all together, we came up with these certain areas of learning and innovative skills, life and career skills, and media and IT skills. And we saw that there's a range of subjects that were taught and given by schools. Now, looking more specifically at schools, we understand that most schools are bound by their assessment and standards and curriculum instructions, which oftentimes is given by the authorities, and it's very immovable. But they're all based on a learning environment that is defined how the curriculum instruction and standard assessments are done. And ultimately, the goal of all of that should be, excuse me, bringing about those personal, social, career, and general skills. That is the goal of our project. Now, the project Future SME is a 4-year project, and it went through different phases. The first phase was research of what was available and what had already been done. Then we developed a framework of our curriculum and used what was already available, and what was not available we developed ourselves. And then the third phase was, of course, to put it to test, and based on the testing, to come with results and refine it to an ultimate curriculum that we would disseminate. Now, for that, we chose a pilot site that was the Forella International School. As you heard, I was the founder of that school. It was a very successful school and approved by the Ministry of Education. The benefit of that school was that it was an international school, and yet within the framework of a European government regulation. So we could exercise a general practice of how a European school could exercise those educational goals. Also, it was oriented towards values, high academic achievements, skill and competency building, and interaction with community at large. So basically, we had a lot of common points. Now, this looks like a very crowded slide, and I left it crowded on purpose because we're not going to have enough time to look at a lot of details about this project, so this will give us a little bit more of the details that we're not, that we can actually base on. We defined certain best practices that were essential to be present at the basis of, as the basis of our educational project. So these included using proven effective research-based instructional strategies, implementing advanced theories of learning, such as the theory of multiple intelligences, inquiry and project-based learning, regular and purpose-oriented assessment of the students and projects, assessment of the student also on positive contribution to society and not just on the result of the test that they take, infusion of technology to support instruction, teaching to think independently, to apply learning strategies to real-life situations, and to make informed decisions, encouraging the students to appreciate diversity, to apply social learning to real-life situations, to analyze cause and effect rather than just studying for exams, to carry out practical lessons and projects so that students can have hands-on experience and develop skills, a strong involvement of parent and community, and cooperation with the community as a learning platform to send our students to those places where they could actually practice working and learn about working attitudes and technology, and having an advisory council of professionals to input and feedback as to the projects of what we were doing. Now, these best practices were all implemented, and they were implemented by various steps that we took. We had a values-based mission statement that was developed, to which the whole school community was committed, carried out facilitative consensus-building styles of leadership, had extensive staff development. We had a lot of social activities and services involved in the programs of the school and the life of the school, methods of instruction that included questioning, using project-based assignments, inquiry-based learning, and so on. We used the theory of multiple intelligences, other similar theories. Students were given remedial instructions to help with their academic achievement. A high level of both community and parent involvement was developed. There was a school-wide expectation of excellence which was raised, and in character development as well as academics. The school technology support was increased ongoingly, and there was an advisory board implemented. Now, during the pilot project, we did the following on an ongoing basis. We developed the structure of the curriculum, updated it, refined it. We trained teachers. We had regular meetings with teachers. These regular meetings were almost every week, once a week. Feedback came from teachers and students. There were ongoing creation of teaching guidelines, and they were adapted and updated and implemented as we went, and corrected where necessary. Lots of questionnaires were given. They were not always the same format, so we used lots of different ways of getting feedback from parents, students, and teachers. Then what we were teaching and the skills and attitudes we were going to implement into the program were refined, and we set priorities, because we knew that in order to promote this in our school and other schools, we would have limited access to the students' times and resources, and we needed to refine what we were doing. We, of course, updated all of the things, the best practices that we had mentioned in the environment, and basically refined the environment to the closer and closer to the goal that we wanted to achieve. We also made sure that there were study work. This was working with community. We sent the students to different industry and places such as computer centers, hospitals, theaters, to learn how to work. I'm going to show you some of the examples of some of the questionnaires that we made. This one is about the character building program that we carried out at school. For example, about 40 teachers answered questionnaires, and these were the results that we achieved. Here we wanted to see if the effect on motivation was changed. Students show noticeable high motivation after the program was implemented. Here the answer was, I strongly agree, I agree. We didn't have any negative result here. Students have learned and are implementing principles of consultation. Again, here's a good result. In terms of responsibility, they were not yet fully responsible, but they were practicing responsibility. Cooperation, the same way. Environmental awareness. And after having carried out a lot of different feedback systems, we came up with something such as this, which set priorities for some of the things we were teaching so that we could narrow down and set priorities. And as you see here, for example, work attitude seems to be of highest priority according to our results of the questionnaire. This one is cooperation, teamwork, decision-making skills, and so on. So this was an important result for us to work with. Based on that and other feedback we got, we came up with this. We had our curriculum instruction and learning environment, and we realized that around that we had to come up with development of all of this, which was learning and innovation skills, media and IT, work attitude, decision-making, teamwork, consultation, emotional social intelligence, career and life skills. Now, after having worked with that and put a lot of elements into what goes into each one of those bubbles that I just showed you, we realized that we could divide them into 4 areas of skill development. Now, these are all overlapping. A skill which goes into general skill is definitely also part of social skills and career skills and so on. But we broke them into those areas so that we could also work with them in an age-appropriate gradual process at the schools. So for example, if you look at personal skills, you see communication and assertiveness, which is also part of social skills and career skills. At the same time, we have things such as health and lifestyle, nutrition, arts and music, appreciation, and hobbies and fashion and so on. So this kept on developing and based on which platform, which I will mention in a minute, we worked on, then we used a number of possibilities. So in order to do this, as I mentioned, we had to go to different platforms of exercise. The most possible platforms and most logical platforms were secondary schools and high schools, vocational schools. After-school programs are a very good place to implement these programs. There are learning centers and Saturday academies where young people are at, and there are also a lot of youth clubs and culture programs where you can implement this program. We also initiated the idea of a methodical center, which is basically a pool where different individuals or organizations and institutions can approach and get information from and networking. Also in the future, and hopefully near future, we're going to move on to colleges and universities with a similar project. Our activities were focused on the following. As we went on those platforms, we keep on working on the educational material. We do continuous education for teachers, integration into various schools. We help schools pilot the project, and if they are piloting or thinking about it or wanting to see which part of it they could implement into their schools, we can give them training and consulting. And this is a very important part. We can also, different countries of Europe can try to integrate this program into their legislative bodies, whether it's the national or regional bodies. In Slovakia, for example, we realized that if the Ministry of Education implemented this program, they had 3 possibilities. They could put it in the daily school program, they could put it in the optional part of the daily curriculum, or they could use it as an extracurricular used into school clubs and after-school programs. And we did actually do that. We also passed on to some local government bodies that have educational and cultural responsibility. They actually carry out programs for the youth and so on. And there we were successful, and some of the communities actually in Slovakia are using part of our competency building program. The other thing that we did and that we continuously work on is we developed a website for the participants. These are, again, teachers or schools, after-school bodies, anybody who's involved in this and similar programs. And there's a lot of information here available of about the project, the results of the project, what are the things you can do. Then you can also approach it as a school or a youth club or an academy, depending who you are. You can approach different results and get benefit from what is available. In connection with this, we also created a members portal. This portal has thousands of pieces of very, very useful information. These go all the way from teaching class, the questions you ask, to management, to economics, to legal issues, and all of that is there. And depending on who you are, who's approaching this, you will get your own piece of information. For example, here I came in as the administrative body and I wanted to see how to manage certain things. Here I'm looking at management, economic, and personal issues. But if you came as a teacher, you could, for example, look at science and math and so on. So basically, this is also what's available. This is ongoingly being completed and translated. So this is still at work. I don't think we can overemphasize the importance of education. These are some of the quotes I took out of some of the biggest speeches that were given recently by presidents and peoples of capacity. Education is the key to a healthy economy. Education is the key to your success. Education is the key to a nation's future success. Very much agree with that. Education is the key to unlocking the world. I think this is a very important, entertaining, and I would like to see that a lot of individuals, companies, governments, and non-governments would really get engaged in promoting education and good quality education so that our future generation can be successful in what they're doing. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you very much, Sharon. I think that was an excellent presentation, and you covered a lot of material there. So I presume there'll be several questions arising from that. So I'm now going to move on to the second presenter in this webinar, who is Umit Batici, Professor Umit Batici, who comes from the third level rather than the second level, and that may be the aspect that you may want to talk about. Professor Batici is the director of the Strathclyde Institute for Operations Management, or SIOM, and he is also the Professor of Technology and Enterprise Management at the University of Strathclyde. Umit's area of expertise is operations management, and more specifically, he specializes in performance management in manufacturing services and in public organizations. This encompasses areas such as strategy development and management, business process management, and supply chain management, and how technology is used in enhancing organizational performance. As regards this project, Umit is the leader of the Future SME Consortium, which developed the Future SME project, a proposal, and the transformation roadmap to help companies reach the future model of success, which is the output from this project. And it was Umit's initiative originally to include this schools aspect into the Future SME proposal, which was quite a unique thing to do. So Umit, I'll hand it over to you to talk about this area. Have you got some slides, or are you just going to talk?
No, I'm just going to talk. You keep my pretty picture on the
all right. Okay.
On the screen. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I will keep this quite brief because I think Zaren covered a lot of the good detailed material when it comes to schools. But I want to generally talk about what I might call the people supply chain. If you think about industry, manufacturing industry, SMEs or larger, at the end of the day, we get any organization is as good as the people that work in it. And we get these people from a supply chain of people coming right from schools, colleges and universities, right to the doctoral level, if you like. And it's been a bee on my bonnet for several years that while we have good education systems in Europe, they were probably designed many hundreds of years ago when people were working in fields and they had to put the kids somewhere so they can be looked after and taught right from wrong. I don't think we ever look back saying, is the current education system we have today fit for purpose? And is it fit for what we need in the future? But to come back and to be more grounded, I'm finding more and more as we work with manufacturing companies, they are having to invest quite a lot on retraining people on some basic fundamental thinking processes. Like the concept of waste, which underpins a lot of the good manufacturing processes we have today, in lean manufacturing, etc. And I can't help but think that kids coming out of schools, whether they go into college or university, the further education, higher education, or they go into the labor market and work in the local newspaper newsagent or the local factory or in the local hotel or whatever. they should be equipped with the concept of waste and the customer's voice and some of those basic, I would say, manufacturing or management skills that are so fundamental to everything we do today. In a way, one could call this the basic concepts behind process management or quality management. The general term people use is about systems thinking. Can we educate kids to think about the system as a whole and how we could actually try to maximize the performance of the system by looking at waste, variation, and other such concepts in customer's voice. One of the motivations behind putting the people supply chain element onto the project was that because I was deeply unsatisfied with the level of education we were giving to all the way through from schools and colleges about this, what I consider virtually a life skill. And if you really look at it critically, unless somebody decides to do a manufacturing degree or a systems engineering degree or some sort of technical qualifications relating to manufacturing or systems engineering, they don't get introduced to these concepts, not formally. We don't develop their thinking processes. Now, with this, I don't necessarily mean that we should include a quality management class in a secondary school or a systems thinking class. A lot of these skills can be embedded on our normal curricula and actually try to develop it. And I believe what Zaren has done is developing a lot of those skills. So that's one of the first messages I wanted to communicate today. And the second message is one of more integrated education right through the supply chain. What I mean by more integrated is more integration between education providers and users, customers of the educated product, the employers, effectively, industry, commerce. Today, many years ago, we used to have a big brick wall in between the two worlds. Educators educated the students, and then they were thrown over the wall, and employers taken them and said, okay, some of them meet our requirements, some of them we need to do some more work on them, etc., and they did whatever. Last 10 years we made big progress, we talk to each other more, we understand industry, commerce requirements, and we've started to create better education programs that meets those requirements. But what I am still deeply unsatisfied with is that we can do a lot better. We could virtually create an integrated platform for education. If we put ourselves into the shoes of the school kid or the student who's going to go through some sort of education process, we need to give them the best education. And best education is not necessarily in a particular subject like manufacturing, can be done in just an education establishment. We need to give them the best education by giving them exposure to industry and exposure to theory, and let them plow away collecting knowledge from both ends. The best way of doing this is by having, if I may speak about at a graduate level, we could have degree programs which is delivered jointly by industry and education part, university, where university could be teaching the theory and some of the more generic principles of manufacturing, but more specific aspects and some of the skills can be actually taught by the industrial partners. For example, we teach people CNC programming in a manufacturing degree, but not everybody goes to a company which actually has CNC machines. Some of them go to factories, manufacturing organizations who make food and drinks. which they tend to use PLCs and other kind of automated systems. So imagine an education program when the industry is part of the education, so they actually, students get credit and they are taught by their mentors inside the industry, but they're also taught by the academia. So they have a real balanced experience of practice and theory, and they come up with skills that are immediately transferable and immediately relevant to employers, but also they've got academic skills developed. Now, we've done a bit of research on this, and currently in UK, in Scotland particularly, a standard BEng program is 4 years, and an MEng program, a Bachelor of Engineering program is 4 years, and a Master of Engineering program is 5 years. And the interesting thing is that through this integrated approach, through a graduate apprenticeship program, we can produce graduate engineers to BEng and MEng level in 5 or 6 years. So basically it will be only 1 year longer, but the person will come out of the other end having 5 or 6 years of experience working in industry. They would have been paid a salary, they would have gone through the academic program, and they come out with a range of skills, but that's far surpasses even a first-class top-flying graduate that's coming out of one of the best manufacturing programs. So I don't think we're there yet, and that's one thing I wanted to share today. So that's the second message. There is a lot of work to be done to create an truly integrated education program. We're putting the student at the center and delivering an education to them that would make them valuable from day one to our industry and financial colleagues. Thank you. Dennis, that's me. Finish my presentation.
I just need to unmute myself. Thanks very much, Umit, for that. And we now have about 10 minutes for questions and discussions. And I have 1 or 2 questions here from the audience. But if you have any further questions, by all means, put them into the question box down below. The first question I have here, it's for you, Zaran, which is around the initial application of what you did. The question here is that Forel International is a private school, and probably a little bit easier to introduce change than what it would be in a state school. Have you any way or any idea as to how this might be introduced into, let's say, the UK or the Irish system?
Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed, yes.
Oh, great. Well, the one thing that I pointed out was that the benefit of piloting at that school was that it was within it was under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Education of Slovakia, so it was a special kind of private school that still had to abide by all of the rules and regulations of the ministry. And actually the point for this pilot was not to only implement it in private school, but also in public schools. Most public schools in Europe have something of up to a maximum of 70% of their program is fixed, but about 30% is free to arrange as you wish. And basically those are where the areas where we could implement the skills. However, a lot of the skills, the program is supposed to be implemented also within the core curriculum. And very briefly said, very simply said, for example, the teacher of mathematics would learn how to, instead of giving word questions that are just created, he or she would give questions, for example, that relate to mortgage, would relate to issues that the students would actually have to deal with in real life. So they're still teaching math, but they're using questions and homework and projects in a way that the outcome of it would prepare the students for such skills. So it's not really a total change of bringing removing the old and bringing new into the school program, but rather implementing elements into the already existing program so that they can still go on and teach their lessons, but the content would be adapted. And in fact, most public schools are happy to receive this because they are quite fixed in what they're given, but they like to have the elements of the privatization of their the exercise of the skills, because that promotes them as the better school. And so there's a lot of, actually they're quite welcoming with that.
Okay, thanks very much.
I hope this answers the question.
I'm sure it does indeed, yes. I've another question here. Umit, this is probably more focused on you. You talked about...
And Dennis, I probably could just continue with one more thing. In some of my last slides, I mentioned going to the authorities, the local and national authority. Those are some of the best way to implement this program, because the educational and cultural authorities of every country has a lot of free room and and a lot of different places where they can place part of this educational program, if not the whole thing. And so if they're not able to put it into the full program of the daily program of the school, but there is a lot of other alternatives, such as the school clubs and additional credit courses and so on, where you can put it. And therefore, if you go to the authorities and try to work together with them, you can multiply your efforts, because once that is approved, hundreds of schools can benefit from this.
Okay, that's interesting. So I know in Ireland they have a year called transition year, which students take, and that is often controversial as to whether it's a useful or a non-useful year. And I suppose if some of this was brought into it, it could be quite interesting.
Yes, absolutely.
Umit, a question maybe for you. You talked about industry and academia cooperating together for programs, but also somebody here has asked about how about the role of the community, the external community in helping to foster the link between industry and academia. Would you have any comments on that? Umit?
I think you lost him.
Ah.
No, you haven't lost me. I just forgot to unmute myself.
Okay.
I was answering the question, talking to myself. Yeah. So apologies for that. No, it's a good question, I think, because over the last 20, 25 years, we spent a fair bit of time in different cultures, different countries. And I find the industry, academia link, industrial education link is very much driven by cultures. Yeah. Particularly when it comes to SME level. Yeah. If there is a greater power distance, culture, for example, the cultures that generally greater power distance, then there tends to be much greater distance between SMEs and academia. And the cultures where there is less power distance, there's less of a distance that can work better together. But despite all this, I just yet to still see a good integrated education program, such as the one I tried to outline earlier on. I don't think we are far away from it, being able to do it. I think it's just bringing the right people around the table. And I think what we need to do is we need to open our minds to possibilities. And in a way, I don't think this will happen. It needs some intervention, government intervention. I don't think community is a barrier to this. I think what we will see is that if we have some interventions to enable this to happen, and we see the results coming out, community will be 100% behind it, the society. But I think that the power distance between organizations and the academia is quite an important one to overcome. And I think the government intervention can actually help to resolve that.
Okay. Thanks very much, Umit. I'm conscious of the fact that we're coming close to the end of the time allocated for the webinar. So there are a couple of other questions which I must apologise that I'm not able to ask. But what I would encourage is, if any people are interested, would be to either go to the Future SME website, where you get general information about Future SME, or go to the website that Zaren put up. Also, and if you've forgotten what those websites are, just send me an email at the email address that you'll find at the end of this presentation. What I'd like to do now is just to wrap up. Just to tell you that this webinar this afternoon is the 5th in a series of webinars that we are hosting as part of EU SME Week, which is a European-wide week when all types of events are organised for SMEs. As a matter of fact, I think we're actually the only people who are actually setting up webinars for this. There is one further webinar tomorrow at 2 o'clock, which you can see on the screen there, which will be presented by the Bank of Ireland. A totally different area than what we're talking about today, and it describes how they assess the viability of business cases presented to them. This would be a very practical session, and is really a must for any manager or any industry person looking for funding in the near future. To find out more about that, you can go into the Future SME website there, and or if you want to log in, you can log in by clicking on the link in the left-hand corner. So that's basically it. Thank you very much for coming, and thanks to Zaren and thanks to Umit for their presentations today. And I hope everybody got some good out of it. Please fill in the survey when you log out. And as I say, send me an email or contact us if you'd like to see the presentation. And so goodbye, and I hope you all have a nice evening. Bye bye.
Thank you, Dennis.